All right. So hello, everybody. My name is Elizabeth, and I am the press officer of the Max Planck Institute for Medical Research here in Heidelberg. And I am here today with Kerstin. Hi, Kerstin.
Hi.
So Kerstin has been a research group leader at our institute for about 1 year and a few months. And we're here today to talk to her about building a research group and growing your own lab, basically. So we're very happy we can talk to you today. And I would like to give you just the chance to introduce yourself real quick. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm Kerstin Göpfrich. Since November 2019, I'm leading the group Biophysical Engineering here at the Max Planck Institute for Medical Research in Heidelberg. We work on the bottom-up assembly of synthetic cells, especially with DNA nanotechnology. And yes, what brought me here, actually, I studied physics and a bit of molecular medicine in Erlangen. And then I went to Cambridge as an Erasmus student. But I stayed there for much longer than I had anticipated. I did my master's there, and then I also stayed for my PhD afterwards. Then I moved to Stuttgart, to the Max Planck Institute for Intelligent Systems in Stuttgart to work with Joachim Spatz. And since 2019, now I'm here in Heidelberg, and it's very nice to be here, definitely.
And we're happy to have you. So before we get into how you actually built your lab, you of course had to apply for funding and you had to apply for the position. And you also had to identify the topic that you wanted to work on. And in my imagination, it has to be, of course, interesting and promising also for committees to get interested in the topic. So how did you choose the topic and then ultimately the title of the group?
It's an interesting question because I don't remember actually actively choosing. For me, it was always somehow my passion or maybe my curiosity that led me to the topic. So I don't know. I remember that even as a child, I was always very interested in these big questions. What is life? Could it be different? All these questions that my parents couldn't answer. And then it was during my PhD that I heard a talk, and I heard many talks, but in particular, I remember one talk by Kees Becker, one of the many scientists I really admire. He was talking about bottom-up synthetic biology and a dream to really build a cell from scratch. And from that moment on, I saw my PhD project from a different perspective. So I'd been building ion or nanopores as sensors initially from DNA-based nanopores, and yeah, somehow they were meant to be sensors. But for me, from that moment on, they were always components of synthetic cells, and it was very clear that for my postdoc, if I do a postdoc, I want to build other components and recombine them to really piece the pieces of the puzzle together and yeah, try and build a synthetic cell. And from that moment on, I had somehow a way in my mind in which I thought, okay, this is how I can approach one of these really, really big questions that have been in my mind for so long. And I somehow had the tools right there, and this is why somehow the question was very, very clear to me. Yeah, I don't know, like how to name the group is an interesting question. I mean, I went back through my old notes, and I found that I had probably 30 different names listed there. Yeah, I think one challenge is that you have to think not just about the next 2 or 3 years, right? And you have that very clear vision for the next steps that you want to do, but you actually have to think about the next 30 years or so, right? And there you have to keep in mind that you probably need to make the name broader than you may initially think. And then I think it was Joachim Spatz who actually gave me very good advice on this, and this is how we ended up in the end with the name Biophysical Engineering, which is broad enough, I think, to encompass everything that we are going to do in the future.
Mm-hmm. So you became the research group leader of the Biophysical Engineering group in November 2019. But I guess you went through some application processes. I think this was not just the first thing you went through. So what were your main takeaways from applying for a research group leader position? So are there things that you can recommend or tips you might have, like a do's and don'ts thing?
Yeah, this is a very good thing to ask for, because I've also been asking everyone in my environment about tips, and I got so much useful advice. So I'm very, very happy to pass it on to the next generation, let's say, or the coming group leaders. So the application process, and I think that's quite generally true, is a two-step process. So first of all, you write a proposal, and then if you get to the next round, you go to an interview. And in total, this process for me, it took 14 months. So from first submitting the proposal to actually starting the group. And this means if you count the time that I spent thinking about the proposal, it actually took 2 years, right? If I from starting to think about starting a group and actually starting it. This means that you have to start early, and you have to start much earlier than you think. My advisor, Ilya Platzman, at the time, he told me, you know, one paper will not change your CV. And this was one of the best pieces of advice that I got. He told me apply early. And this is very much true. What you have to bear in mind is that you should have at least one paper without your PhD advisor to show that you can generate results in a new environment, so to say. So from the moment on I had this, I started to apply. And I think what really helped me was that I had applied for a postdoc grant first. So I was holding a Marie Curie fellowship at that time. So I had already sketched out my ideas. I had thought about it very carefully. And I used that kind of as a draft, as a template to broaden the ideas and to also write that proposal for the group. So that was very, very helpful to have it in hand, because it made me think about starting a group even much earlier. So even right after my PhD, it made me think about my own vision and what I really want to do and so on. So that was extremely helpful to have this postdoc fellowship proposal as a kind of template, and of course also for the CV, it's useful. And I think one other thing that is really true for proposal writing is the 80-20 rule does not apply. I think if there's one thing that you have to do perfect, it's writing proposals, right? So this just has to be 100% or probably more. So really set the time aside and do it properly. It really helps. It's not like some people may think, but that's wasted time. I don't think it is, because it really helps you to get the vision, the idea is clear. You read so much in the time, and it was really useful time, a good use of my time, I would say. Yeah, so then maybe, or hopefully you made it to the interview. I think, or no, maybe you didn't even make it to the interview yet, before even in the proposal stage, okay. I think you should already contact the institute that you want to work at. You should already contact the people there. You should also contact other people who might have had this type of group, be it a Max Planck research group like the one I have, or be it an Aminota group. I think it's very good to talk to people who had that type of junior group before, so that you can get advice. And normally people, I was actually amazed by how much time the people were willing to spend with me actually helping. And this is a very, very nice experience, and I'm also very happy to pass it on. So yeah, if I can be of any help, then please also really get in touch. It's a nice experience. So yeah, I think build long-lasting relationships and get in touch with the people, and then you probably make it to the interview. Now at the interview, I think it's useful to put yourself into the shoes of the interviewer, right? Like imagine being them, right? Maybe they are members of the institute that you want to go to. So then they are looking for a good colleague, B, someone who is working on a topic where maybe collaborations can arise, but at the same time not working at the same topic that's already there at the institute, right? So it has to be really a complementary fit. And like putting yourself into the shoes of the interviewer, I think can help. And also thinking about the fact that the interview doesn't stop after 20 minutes, right? Actually, whenever you meet the people, whenever you talk to them, it's nice to think about scientific ideas also. It's always an opportunity. I think that's the advice I have. Probably I missed a lot.
Thanks. I think this is very helpful for, postdocs or PhD students looking to apply for such a position. So when you first then finally started at the Institute after this 14-month period, you were already at the Department for Cellular Biophysics, so one of our departments before, for about 2 years, right? So the institute it was familiar. So you knew most of the people and you knew the layout. So when you started the group, you still had to design your lab space, you had to buy equipment, you had to hire people, and then you had to get the group working. So how did you go ahead with this? Did you set priorities and goals or timelines?
Yeah, although I was I was already at one of the departments. I moved from Stuttgart to Heidelberg, so everything was kind of new, and of course also all of the tasks were very new. So I think for everyone it's a very exciting time, and also a very challenging time. That's definitely true. So yeah, I think one of the hardest things that you need to somehow get your head around is that all of a sudden you have lots and lots of urgent tasks to do, right? Like all this hiring, all this building up labs and so on. All these things become quite urgent quite quickly. And I think there it's really important to set time and to manage to not forget the important stuff, right? To balance between the urgent and the important. And the important is, of course, the science. And yeah, this I think is one of the most challenging bits at the beginning, to really set time aside for the important stuff. I think one way of approaching this is to really take the opportunity that you're starting from scratch and set up everything, set a solid base. And what I mean by that is, for instance, now you have the chance to really think about how do you want the lab books to look like? Do you want an online lab book? Like, how do you want the website to look like? How do you want the meeting structure to be like? Like all these organizational things that take a lot of your energy if you have to do them again and again and again. If you do them right at the beginning and have everything set up so that it then runs smoothly, maybe you have documents of how you introduce new people, like all of these kinds of things. Once you have them in place, I think it takes some of these urgent tasks away from you and give you more time for the important stuff. I think I'm still not perfect at this, but at least maybe it's helpful to think about it that way.
Yeah. So just 4 months into starting the group, the pandemic hit. So right when you were in the middle of building it, you kind of got interrupted, let's say. So how did this have an impact on getting the lab running and hiring also maybe new team members from abroad? So how did you adapt to this new situation?
Yeah, of course it had a big impact, but I think it's also fair to say that it had a big impact on everyone in this world, right? Be it a scientist, be it someone else. And I don't want to say it was worse for me than for anyone else. Yeah, but still, of course, it was very challenging. So first of all, it started, we'd already sent samples to Japan, spent months preparing them. A lot of money went into it, and flights were booked and everything. And this was my start into the pandemic, that I had to organize to cancel everything, basically. Samples are still there, by the way, in the freezer. Nobody has ever looked at them. Probably now they are ready to go to the bin. So that's quite sad and was quite difficult in the beginning. But yeah, I mean, so definitely it's very clear that the pandemic was a setback. Also, as you said, in terms of hiring. So I had a postdoc applicant after searching for a very long time who was meant to come. He couldn't come because of the pandemic and had to cancel in the end. Yeah, so of course these are challenges that we are facing, but definitely what was very helpful is that the institute was really supportive. I have to say, like Ilme Schlichting and also Joachim Schwarz, they made sure that I got more lab space earlier than it was initially planned, so that we can spread out a bit and keep the work going. So I think, yeah, I'm so grateful to be at this institute where things seem to run as well as possible, given the constraints that everybody has. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't think anyone planned for the pandemic, and it it's certainly not an easy situation. What I really want to make myself aware of is that, you know, when I started the group, I had planned already all the group retreats that we were going to be doing, and me, like, building really a lab atmosphere that everyone likes to work in is a super important part of science. And I had always experienced this in the labs that I was in before. And this social aspect is, I think, what is lost at the moment. And so what I try to do is I really try and remember that once the situation improves again, once the pandemic is over, that I get out of these habits that we got into at the moment. So really, at the moment, I have to restrict the things that I would normally support, right? All of this interaction, all of this joint lunches, joint whatever. I have to restrict it, and I think it's important to restrict it. Well, it's part of our duty as society, I would say. But really, that once it's over, I do not want these habits to become the new normal for an extended period of time. And I think, especially if you start a group and you haven't been so actively practicing the normal habits yet, then it's even more important to really set aside the old habits once we're in a normal situation again. I hope soon.
Yeah, I think we are. Yeah. So you have been running the lab for a bit more than 1 year now. Maybe you can give us 3 of your biggest challenges or screw-ups, maybe also, and maybe 3 highlights from the past year.
Yeah, well, let's start with the challenges. I think COVID has to be listed there. Definitely was a big challenge to deal with that and to find regulations that are strict enough, but not too strict to inhibit any progress. Yeah, the second part that I found very challenging was hiring, actually, because I mean, obviously I want to build an international and inclusive lab and so on, but then I realized how difficult it actually is to read international CVs, to understand what they mean and so on. So I really want to make sure, I really want to say I don't think I screwed up hiring, right? So I think I have a perfect, very, very good group, great people, but definitely hiring is not easy. Well, also in relation to the pandemic, but I think this is not just true in these times. Yeah, and a third point you asked for, I mean, I would say probably what I also mentioned before, like dividing your attention between the important and the urgent, setting time aside for the important tasks, namely science, managing all the urgent stuff anyway. That would be my third challenge.
And the highlights, maybe?
Yeah, the highlights. I guess the biggest highlight, of course, seeing all these plans turn into reality all of a sudden with much more hands than you had in your postdoc. That's amazing. And I mean, especially if students try things that you think are very, very hard or don't work, and they just make it work. Right? And seeing their motivation, I think. We had a few examples in this first year like that, where I thought, wow, that's a challenging task, and they just managed to make it work, and that's really, really cool. And also when they come with their own ideas and seeing the motivation, that's amazing. It's very, very rewarding, I would say. Another highlight was moving into our labs and offices. Now, you know, when you're there, it feels like a group is being established when you're there. It's a very nice offices that we got, a great view. I think the papers, like seeing the first results come out. I had my first paper as a last author, corresponding author, and the group was involved in a total of 10 publications, which is in the last year, in 2020. So I think we can be pretty proud of that, and I certainly don't take all of the credit. It really goes to the group. I mean, that's certainly the highlight.
So your group is originally set, or Max Planck group leader positions are normally set for 5 years. So did you set any goals just for this period, or what are your maybe personal goals, or also for the group goals for the next years?
Yeah, I mean, once you write a proposal, you set very clear goals for the next 5 years. And I think, yeah, scientifically, our goal is definitely to achieve what I proposed. It's quite ambitious, but yeah, really a clear idea where we want to get to. And beyond that, beyond the science, I would say one of my biggest goals is that people leave the group and say, yes, this was the right decision. I had a good time here. So basically, being a good mentor and giving back everything that the group is giving me is an important goal. For myself, I mean, I don't think that my own curiosity will be satisfied in the next 5 years, and I really want to continue in science. I want to continue as a scientist, and this means, of course, getting a professorship in the next 5 years would be my personal goal. Yeah.
That sounds great, and I wish you all the best and luck, but also success. I think with you, luck isn't always the thing. You're really, I think, also ambitious, and you work really hard towards your goals. So I wish you all the best for this. So thanks for talking to me about how to build the research group and how to kind of find your way into a scientific career. And yeah, thanks very much.
Thank you.